Are you surprised that I watch stuff that doesn't relate to cartoons in any way? I know I would be, taking I've only ever talked about cartoons and anime so far on my channel. Anyways, jumping straight into it, what is Good Omens? Good Omens is a show that follows an angel, Aziraphale, a principality who once guarded the eastern gate of Eden, and Crowley, a fallen angel who acted as the Serpent of Eden. He is not Lucifer, just need to clarify that. And their unlikely friendship as they scramble over themselves to repeatedly find people heaven and hell keep losing. I guess they weren't really looking for Gabriel since they were the ones to hide him in season 2, but you get what I mean, right? Good Omens has stayed as one of my favorite shows for a good 6 years now. I've probably seen it 5 times. This is actually the only show that's made me do another rewatch as soon as I finished season 1 before season 2 was greenlit. I've read the books 3 times, I've listened to the audiobook and radio show, and I've read the script book multiple times, I think. I fell in love with the series after watching it in quarantine. So you can imagine my excitement when it was announced it was being renewed for a 2nd and 3rd season. And my disgust and disappointment when the allegations against Neil Gaiman, the co-author of the original book and showrunner of the show, were brought to light. We were lucky enough to still get some sort of conclusion to the series. They were actually planning on canning it, but Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman's co-author in writing Good Omens the book, his estate fought to give us something to end on, even if it was only 90 minutes. I kept my expectations super low for the finale. I mean, only 90 minutes for an over 6,000 year long slow burn? Yeah, keep your expectations low and you'll never be disappointed. And I think that worked. I genuinely thought this finale was going to ruin the general show for me, but it really didn't. Or at least not in the way I thought it would, but I will get to that later. A good chunk of the fandom doesn't seem to be on the same boat as me though. And while I get it for the most part, some bits of their arguments don't quite sit right with me, so I thought I'd air out what I liked about the finale, what I didn't, and some points about the finale people keep bringing up that I think may need to be looked at through a different lens than what many are failing to consider. But before we begin, hi, hello, my name is Mika, and I make art and commentary videos on top of running a small art business where I sell art, prints, stickers, acrylic charms, and button pins. You can check out my shop and social links in the description below. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. Good Omens series finale spoilers ahead. While this is mostly just meant to be a general analysis of the finale, I still wanted to give some sort of review, so let's talk about what I liked. Despite having many issues with the main chunk of the finale, I did genuinely enjoy having Aziraphale and Crowley back, especially Aziraphale. He's always been my favorite. He's just like me for real. I love you, never die. Oh, wait, jokes aside, while I have thoughts on the Bentley subplot, I do think it's cute how they both save something the other cherishes. Crowley saves the bookshop, and Aziraphale saves the Bentley. Again, I have thoughts on this plot, but I feel like if we had more time, we would have been able to expand on and have these plots hit harder. Jesus was fun and helped to hammer in the card metaphor for the illusions of free will. It was nice to see Muriel again, and I think the fact that the old God's favorite headcanon about her perception of Aziraphale and Crowley was confirmed is pretty funny. Speaking of, I thought the final decision of restarting humanity made sense, which is a super controversial take to say in the fandom right now, I know, but I'll get into why I think it made sense later. You're allowed to disagree with me. Just know that I think the final decision ties into half of the original theme of Good Omens, and I like the finger kiss. I thought it was much more intimate than anything else they could have done. That's also gonna be another big thing I'm gonna talk about later on, so that's all I'll say for now. I like the human ending, even though it might be implied that God actually created a general multiverse rather than one singular one, but this actually got rid of the one main gripe I had with the concept before the finale aired. I think it's funny that Asa and Anthony jumped straight into dating rather than wait a painfully long time. They went from a 6,000 year slow burn where Aziraphale and Crowley are struggling with the fact that they were on 2 separate sides, and Aziraphale worrying about how fast Crowley moved, to it taking, what, 5 minutes? And Anthony saying he'll wait for Asa? I think it was cute. I like how we get to see that, despite God's previous claim that they won't exist at all anymore, the angels and demons still found a way, and we actually get to see Adam and Jesus grabbing a beer together. Yes, that's Adam. It's fine if you missed it the first time around. He looks different. He's an adult now. I missed it too. We got the South Downs, our Nightingale, and our season-mandated Queen song. I have more to say about the ending to the finale, but I really want to talk about that later, specifically the bookshop scene. Anyways, sorry for blitzing through all this. I just want to get into the meat of the video as fast as possible. Before I say anything, yes, I know the 90 minutes definitely restricted what they could do by a lot, but this is a review and I would like to be as honest about what I didn't like as I can. So, obvious out of the way, everything moved way too fast. We jumped from plot point to plot point and it could feel so incredibly disjointed at times. The opening flashback, while cool seeing them during the war, was in my eyes. Really only there to establish the eternal flame and maybe give a reason as to why Crowley felt comfortable enough to go up to Aziraphale in the Garden of Eden. This whole retcon of their first meeting in season 2 has always not quite sit right with me, but I've already made a TikTok about that and I'm not going to talk about it here. Aziraphale having long hair kind of also didn't sit right. I feel like the fact he has only ever made minor changes to his hairstyle while Crowley's is constantly changing was very intentional and representative of how he's stuck in his ways. So seeing this drastic change of hairstyle didn't sit right with me on my first watch through. It still doesn't, but I was talking to my friend Ransom about it and they brought up that he probably just didn't have the time to cut it since he's literally just gotten out of a war, but I don't know. Aziraphale is very particular with his presentation, so this just feels out of character. Also, I've talked about this finale with Ransom a lot, so a lot of the points I make in these upcoming sections also can be attributed to points Ransom has made. I just don't know where my points end and Ransom starts. They've all just kind of melded together at this point. I just wanted to preface that. What I do like about this flashback though is that they confirm angels bleed gold. Not too relevant, and we don't know if demons still bleed gold, but this is just something I wanted to point out that didn't quite fit in the prose section. I referenced this earlier, but I really didn't enjoy the Bentley plotline. While I like what it was supposed to show about Aziraphale's feelings for Crowley, and the car was essentially a bargaining chip to get him on board with finding Jesus, it still took up way too much time we could have spent with Jesus or Michael, which I'll get into in a moment. I have a feeling this gangster plotline in general was supposed to be behind why Wickper Street is like that, but they obviously didn't have time to unravel it. Speaking of Wickper Street, I'm pretty disappointed that we didn't get Nina or Maggie to come back. I'm disappointed none of the humans in general came back, but these two have the most screen time with Aziraphale and Crowley. I would have liked Adam to be a part of this, and the fact that he's in the bar at the end kind of makes it clear that he was meant to be, but he probably would have just complicated things too much. I feel like one of them could have been put in Sandwich's place in terms of being Crowley's support human and the person to lecture Aziraphale, while saying the other is preparing for their move out of Soho. And maybe the only reason Nina or Maggie stayed behind was just to wrap up some last-minute things they need to do in their shop. I don't know. They made a point to stick their nose in Crowley and Aziraphale's business towards the end, so I don't see how this could have been any different. I feel like there wasn't enough build-up to Crowley forgiving Aziraphale. Aziraphale spoke about why he did what he did, and Crowley voices his anger multiple times, but it doesn't really feel like they talked about it. Kind of just words being thrown at each other without anything actually being addressed. Michael and Jesus's arcs went by too fast, and Jesus's especially kind of fell flat. He appears, doubles down on the find the lady metaphor, and then just gets dusted. Anyways, again, just blitzing through my points because I want to jump straight into what everyone is talking about at the moment, the ending. Starting off small, let's talk about the kiss. More specifically, the lack of one, even if I disagree with that statement. So I haven't talked about it on YouTube before, but I'm on the aro-ace spectrum. Where am I on that spectrum? Couldn't tell you. Still trying to figure that one out myself, but even once I do, I don't think I talk about it all that much. Not really anybody's business except my own anyway. Anyways, I'm bringing this up because I feel like a lot of people have taken a rather allo approach to the final bookshop scene, specifically the kiss. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, asexuality is a queer identity about a lack or almost no sexual attraction, while aromanticism is a lack of or almost no romantic attraction. Meanwhile, allosexuality and alloromanticism is the exact opposite of this, where they do experience sexual or romantic attraction. There are a ton of complexities to the aro-ace spectrum that this video isn't really dedicated to, but please feel free to look into this on your own. Anyways, I'm bringing this up because while it's technically not entirely canon, it's been stated in the past that Aziraphale and Crowley can be interpreted as asexual and or aromantic, and they have for years, and they do genuinely mean a lot to me and other aspec people because of this. This is kind of why I wasn't surprised they didn't explicitly kiss in the bookshop. I actually found the finger kiss more intimate than any lip-to-lip contact would have ever been. My friend Mara also brings up that the finger kiss reflects the way Aziraphale touches his lips after the season 2 kiss. I feel like it's him properly returning it, turning their botched kiss into something more tender. Of course, this also could have been done through a different kiss, but I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't have been upset if there had been a kiss. I would have been ecstatic, but from what I've seen, people have just been pissed about this. They're so angry about the fact the two of them didn't technically get a second kiss. They're overlooking Aziraphale's blatant love confession in their teary-eyed goodbye and instead are mad that they didn't make out sloppy style in front of God and Satan. I get it. The season 2 kiss set a high standard for a lot of people, but these two have never actually been too physically affectionate with one another. They've never hugged, and I think the most they've ever really done is hold hands outside of the kiss. And they do that in the final scene. They hold hands. And disregarding all that, even then, that kiss was something Crowley did out of desperation. Both Aziraphale and Crowley have vastly different views on romance. In season 2, Crowley seems more grounded. He cites the way they shielded each other from the rain as a proper way to fall in love with somebody, while Aziraphale cites Jane Austen, a fictionalized take on romance. Granted, the rain scene is also a fictionalized take on romance, but not to them, that's the real world. Jane Austen is an exaggeration, so Crowley tries to appeal to this. He smashes their faces together because he thinks that's what would convince Aziraphale to stay, because that's what happens in the books. And this time, it's Aziraphale's turn to meet Crowley's expectations. It's not a grand gesture that you'd see in a movie. It's small, yet leaves an impact, and I love it so much. The reason why I bring up asexuality while looking at this is because people do tend to look at this scene through an allosexual lens, I feel like. I've seen people compare them to Destiel because of how underwhelmed they were by a lack of kiss. Yes, asexuals and aromantics can enjoy kissing and everything else that comes before and after it. And I'm not saying Aziraphale and Crowley thought negatively about their kiss in season 2, but it's clear that physical affection isn't their love language. It's quality time and maybe even gift giving. They know that they don't need to be physical in order to let the other know that they care. And of course, not aspec people share the same thoughts as me. I'm sure there are a ton that are also disappointed by the lack of a kiss, but I've also noticed that a lot of the people who are fine with it are aspec. Hi, this is Editing Mika. I just wanted to talk about this a little more just because I feel like I come out as kind of harsh, and also some people are bringing up some pretty good points. Something that is said a lot in the fandom is that, like I'm saying here, you don't need to kiss somebody else to prove that you're in love, but other people have also been pointing out that that's usually only used against queer people. But at the same time, it doubles down on a phrase I see get used a lot when it comes to shipping in fandom, and that is asexual people can date and kiss and do everything after too. Which yes, that's super true. Asexual and aromantic people can still do that. But it kind of feels like it's, I don't know. With all my points that I've already made about the romanticism of Aziraphale and the more grounded approach from Crowley, it kind of feels like we're erasing some part of their identity, and it kind of feels like suddenly asexual rep where they don't participate in like anything past kissing or even kissing in general. Suddenly that's not good enough, you know? I'm hoping this clarification kind of makes sense. It seems like a kind of lose-lose situation where one phrase kind of contradicts the other. Yeah. There were also a lot of people complaining that they made Aziraphale and Crowley cisgender in the human ending, but like, how do you know they aren't genderqueer anymore? Not being a man is something Crowley was incredibly adamant about in season 2 specifically, so I don't see why that would change now, especially since Anthony and Crowley's presentations aren't that different. Basically nothing about either Asa or Anthony changed compared to Aziraphale and Crowley. That's a much smaller argument I've seen going around, but as a trans person, I think it's stupid to think they wouldn't still be genderqueer just because they're not smooth down there anymore. Let them be old and genderqueer, god. To backtrack a bit, I can also understand people being upset at Aziraphale's lack of explicit love confession, but he did confess his feelings. He admitted that Crowley makes him whole and that he wants to spend the rest of eternity with Crowley. Both of them want to be with each other, but they know that they can't. They don't explicitly say, I love you, but nobody really did in the original book. Shadwell and Tracy never said it, Anathema and Newt never said it, Gabriel and Beelzebub never said it, and yes, sure, Maggie did, but Nina never returned it. There has never been a reciprocated and blatant, I love you in all of Good Omens, but we all still knew that they loved each other, so why would there be a difference now? I really hope this makes sense, because this finger kiss scene just means so much to me, and while I wouldn't have minded them just locking lips as a goodbye, I prefer this much better. Of course, I can also understand why, but this is a different type of queer love story. Again, asexual people and aromantic people can like kissing, but why are we upset about them not prioritizing it this time? I thought that was the point of accepting asexual people. Maybe I'm just touchy about the subject. If you're aspec and didn't like the fact that they didn't kiss, please let me know. I do want to hear other aspec people's opinion on this, because so far the aspec people I've seen have been fine with it, but my feed is incredibly curated to myself, so I'm wondering if my feed is just biased. Stepping away from a touchy subject with me, let's talk about a touchy subject with the rest of the fandom. I've seen a lot of people be upset with this ending and their choice to reset the universe and start again, which, yeah, okay, that's fair. But I've seen people argue that this ending directly contradicts the Job flashback, claiming that the two choosing to reset the universe is the exact same as Job choosing to have new kids instead of keeping his old ones, which I feel like isn't a fair comparison at all. In Job's situation, he was offered brand new kids in place of his old ones. He was offered more and new children when he just wanted the old ones back. I can see where this comparison comes from, but that really isn't what's going on. The universe was already destroyed. Their universe was gone. With their decision, Aziraphale and Crowley aren't getting new ones, they clearly have the old ones. Like, we see some humans in the final bar scene, and they are clearly the old ones, like they aren't new humans. And even with any changes that comes with their decision, the point of this reset was to give humanity as a whole a proper chance at free will. A discussion that we literally start the show off with in season 1. Hi, editing Mika again. I also just wanted to point out something Ransom said while I was talking to him about Good Omens again, and it's that the Tree of Knowledge didn't gift humanity free will. It just taught humanity the difference between good and evil. In this whole opening scene with Aziraphale and Crowley discussing it and discussing why it was in the garden to begin with is alluding to the fact that she wanted humanity to indulge in the fruit even though she explicitly told them not to. It all ties back to this game of life being rigged. We can hypothetically make decisions, but they all ultimately lead to the same end goal. Her goal. Crowley and Aziraphale don't like that. Crowley especially. Okay, just wanted to throw that quick note out there. I'll get back to the video. Crowley's whole shtick is that he longs for people to make their own decisions. He asks questions, tries to understand things so he can make his choices. He knows firsthand that being punished for just wanting to live a life isn't how many are supposed to live. You can't punish humans for being human. He gives the apple to Eve to gift this to her, even if it's failed as an evil deed. This decision isn't Aziraphale and Crowley taking away humanity and replacing it with something new. Michael, again, already essentially got rid of everybody, because God's reset, her offer of remaking the original universe, technically was just going to bring about the same result. And again, these aren't really new people. They're just gifting humanity something they've never truly had. They're gifting themselves something they've never truly had. Because you can't ever really have free will if it's dictated by a book. I really don't want to bring up season 1 into this because I do want to talk about it. I feel like Anathema's burning of Agnes's second manuscript is a good example of this. She didn't want to be controlled by this looming force anymore, so she gets rid of the book. God's wording in her initial offer makes it sound like she'd just reset everything and have heaven and hell return to their duties, but this also means the ultimate destruction of Earth if things were to go back to as it were, quote unquote. I've seen people compare Crowley and Aziraphale deciding to restart everything to Adam, wanting everything to stay put and persist, and how it contradicts with what he wanted, when I don't personally think it does. Again, Aziraphale and Crowley didn't eradicate everything. They remade what was already destroyed, just with the addition of free will for everyone in existence. Humans needed to develop independently without any sort of meddling from any angelic or demonic influence. Adam had the right idea on humans improving on their own, but they couldn't do that if heaven and hell kept sticking their noses in their business. Humans gonna human, but it's hard when they're being told they'll go to hell just for that. Some are also suggesting that they should have rewritten everything in their own book of life, but But then we fall into the same pit of humans having a lack of free will. It'd be Aziraphale and Crowley manipulating what happens, how the earth works, and they don't want that. They don't want to be the ones in charge. And they also don't want to be sent back to their own universe being the only immortal beings, because then they're just another heavenly and hellish force meddling with humans. Even if there's no heaven and hell. Believe it or not, the human ending was actually my worst case scenario when the finale came out. I hated the idea because it just didn't make sense in my mind. They what? Spend a few decades on Earth together, die, and then go back to work? Like, what would happen to their soul after they die? But this finale basically eliminated my one gripe with this ending. There's no heaven or hell, just humanity. They can just live and die among the things they love most, humans and each other. I've seen a few complaints about Crowley not feeling in character as Anthony, but I feel like that can just come down to him literally just being able to live a happy life, where he can ask questions and share his knowledge about space and the world, even if not too many people are buying his book. This Crowley didn't fight in a war and get tortured for doing the right thing. Anthony can be a nice person and not deal with the consequences. Crowley's always been nice and open to teaching people things. This can be seen with Gabriel and Shax in season 2. He just wasn't in a place to express that. Another reason why people don't really like this ending is actually related to that. I've seen people be upset over how it feels like 6,000 years of slow burn just went down the drain, that the reset was for nothing, but I personally feel like it wasn't. Another reason I didn't really want the human ending is that I personally don't like when characters lose their powers at the end of the story, but that's just kind of a personal gripe with not wanting to lose the fantastical element to my favorite characters. But this, it makes sense in my brain. Again, this decision felt in line with the two as characters, choosing humanity over themselves, and I feel like that in itself doesn't disqualify their 6,000 years together. As a matter of fact, I feel like them finding each other again, and possibly over and over and over again if the end credits are anything to go by, speaks wonders for their bond. They find each other in every lifetime, every universe. Their love persists. Their love remembers each other. And if that isn't the definition of a soulmate, then I don't know what is. They get to finally grow old together. They get married and live a happy life that doesn't involve them worrying about sides. It's cute and it fits them so well. But people aren't happy with it. Again, I can see why. It's not technically the Aziraphale and Crowley that we know, but I still feel like it was satisfying to me. I do personally believe that the bookshop scene was definitely supposed to last at least half an episode, and I feel like if we did get that, a lot more people would be more accepting of this ending. And by the bookshop scene, I mean Aziraphale and Crowley alone inside it. I feel like they were meant to have finally run off together and save themselves, only to come to realize that there is a massive humanity-shaped hole in their life. That they really can't have ever been happy if they just let everything turn into a puddle of burning goo. Even in season 1. Humanity. I have thoughts on humanity in Good Omens, specifically after season 1. After watching the finale, it really makes me remember why I didn't really want anything past a season 1. I was content with Good Omens staying a limited series. And while, yes, I like season 2 and I'm satisfied with season 3, my one gripe with everything past season 1 is that it lost its humanity. I'm sure this has been talked about plenty of times, but what made season 1 stand out is that humans took matters into their own hands no matter how hard heaven and hell, including Aziraphale and Crowley, tried to interfere. We got to watch humans working together and with Aziraphale and Crowley to stop Armageddon, and there was just, again, something so human about it. Which, this on its own, making Crowley's final decision rub people the wrong way is understandable, but again, I feel like these are starkly different circumstances in Adam's choice of keeping everything as it was and Crowley's own. But then season 2 came along and the whole cast of season 1 was just shafted. I guess it makes sense that Aziraphale and Crowley wouldn't latch onto some humans they met for 5 minutes, save for Shadwell, but he also burned the bookshop down, so I understand not wanting to see him again. But the human cast of season 2 was just so small. Sure, this gave us the perfect chance to develop Aziraphale and Crowley's relationship, but Nina and Maggie's story was just never really entirely about them. It was always meant to reflect Aziraphale and Crowley's. Their story wasn't about humanity, it was about two supernatural beings' love for each other. And I feel like that on its own kind of was the first sign that we had lost the plot a little. I love season 2, don't get me wrong, but it strays so far from what the original book was saying. It dulls down Aziraphale and Crowley to just focusing on their love for one another, not their love for humanity. And then once season 3 hits, we barely have a human cast. We have Jesus, Harry the Fish, the Gangsters, and Sandwich, and they all barely appear. None of them really push the narrative of what it means to be human. Aziraphale and Crowley don't push this narrative in the finale. Humanity only really comes into play in the last sequence in the bookshop. Before this, it's just about them and their relationship issues while they try to find Jesus. The final decision of Aziraphale and Crowley's sacrifice makes sense to me narratively because at the core of it all, Good Omens has always been about humanity, not them. It's about what we as a species can do and going against what others want you to be. But due to all these restrictions on the finale, I feel like they had to ditch that in order to at least give us a conclusion to Aziraphale and Crowley, the two they knew were the main pull towards the show. I feel like if they had gotten the chance to make it a little longer, things would have gotten to be more concise. Jesus' plotline would have been worth it and not fall flat past the illusion of free will metaphor. I feel like they would have used Jesus' kindness to contrast the gangsters, showing the good and bad of humanity, yet Aziraphale and Crowley's everlasting love for them, even if they do grow agitated with the humans from time to time. If they had just been given a little more time, I feel like the point of Aziraphale and Crowley's sacrifice would have left a better impact. If we got to see how quiet and dull their life was alone in that empty bookshop without humans running around, I feel like we would have retained the humanity of the series. Because that's what made all of this special. Humanity and Aziraphale and Crowley's need for us to keep being as messy and ourselves as possible. Every time I try to think of a better ending for the show, because no matter how much I'm defending it right now, it definitely isn't perfect, I always fall back into the thought of this was already done in season 1. Every ending I can think of has already been done, and it reminds me that I never wanted a sequel to what we got in season 1. So in all, I am actually pretty happy with what we got. Was the finale perfect? Hell no. It was a mess a good chunk of the time. But for the most part, I was able to keep an open mind, and I'm really happy with the conclusion to the 90 minutes that we got to this whole series that I do genuinely adore. Aziraphale and Crowley have meant so much to me since I was 16, so I'm happy that they got to have some sort of happy ending in the South Downs with their Nightingale. I am gonna be bitter about our lack of confirmation on if Crowley was Raphael or not for the rest of the time though. I'm sorry, I went off track towards the end. I just feel like the point of Good Omens not really feeling human anymore, and the fact that it maybe should have stayed a limited series is an important note as to why the finale of the series may have felt off. But hey, if you want to disregard the finale, we still have the book and radio show where season 2 and 3 definitively did not happen, and you can stick to that canon instead. You can even just treat season 1 as its own thing if you try hard enough. I personally have somehow already done this in my mind, not intentionally, but I was already in the fandom before season 2 was announced, so I still have that old fanon up in my head to go off of where Aziraphale and Crowley are actually friends with the human cast. But what did you guys think about the finale? Despised it? Loved it? Also have mixed feelings? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. But please remain civil. I've seen how people on both sides of the I hate/love the finale spectrum can get, and I will delete any comments that get hostile. This is a place of discussion, not arguments. Anyways, please make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I make art and commentary videos, and your support would mean the world to me. My Etsy, where I sell stickers, art prints, button pins, and acrylic charms, can be found in the description below alongside my other socials. I believe that's all, so I'll see you guys later. Bye!